All right, something brought me out of retirement. It brought us out of retirement.
Merry New Year to you niggas.
Man, this shit been crazy.
Nigga, you gay. You gay. Y'all niggas are gay. Nigga, you gay.
Nigga, you gay.
Oh, nigga, you gay.
I am L from Acapella.
It's your boy Cutter.
OG2, give me my motherfucking theme music.
Concrete reality.
Hey, yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Concrete Reality TV, where we strive to know more and do more with what we know. If you would like to know more and do more with what you know, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons on the bottom of the screen.
Oh my goodness. Look who decides to show up.
Oh, we got Miss Danae Wright, the author, Danae Wright in the house. Welcome back. It's been a long
Welcome
time.
back.
Welcome back.
We decided to come on back together after a long layoff to discuss these new allegations.
I think they're old allegations. They're just new to us.
So it's been going on for a while. So gospel icon and pastor Donnie McClurkin is being accused of sexually abusing a young man he once mentored. The lawsuit filed in New York alleges that Donnie McClurkin abused a man by the name of Giuseppe Corletto over several years after he sought spiritual guidance back in 2003. The man says he connected with Donnie after reading his book about overcoming the curse of homosexuality and attending a church event in Long Island. Corletto said at first it was all very innocent and what he thought was mentoring, but he now believes he was being groomed. The lawsuit also claims the abuse occurred during so-called Pray the Gay Away sessions.
I'm not gay no more. I am delivered.
It escalated as Corletto worked as Donnie McClurkin's assistant. After an alleged assault back in 2013, Donnie McClurkin allegedly sent an email calling himself a dirty old man and writing, "I feel so foul, so stupid." So far, Donnie McClurkin has denied the claims as categorically false, saying the allegations grossly mischaracterized their interactions. What y'all think? What you got to say on this?
Look, this is the prime time for him to come out as gay. Just say you gay. It's okay. They got gay churches. They got gay ministers. They got gay everything. Just say you gay. That's it. It's okay.
So we got to do this official. We're going to ask for the Concrete Reality Court of Public Opinion. So we're going to get each one of y'all's take on this. Guilty or not guilty? Is this dude, Pastor Donnie McClurkin, the great gospel icon, is he guilty? I'm going to start with you, Gillum. Guilty or not guilty?
Hey, you know what I want to see? Go ahead and play it. You know what it is.
Guilty. That nigga is guilty.
We're going to ask the author, Danae Wright. Guilty or not guilty?
I think this is where we get caught up as believers or unbelievers. We want to be able to say if somebody's guilty or not. An accusation is just an accusation until facts are proven. So I can't speak on whether he's guilty or not. What I can say is when accusations are brought to the public, which is what the word that they teach and they follow says, if you take your offense or whatever to the person, they don't hear you or whatever, take it to the elders or, bring other witnesses along with you. So I think it's being exposed enough for us to be able to look at the facts and the evidence. I haven't so much followed the evidence, so I can't give an opinion of guilty or not guilty on that subject.
So it sounds like you're withholding judgment until further evidence is supplied.
Absolutely.
Hey, on Concrete Reality TV, we call that skating.
Well,
she's skating.
I'm not defending him either. But I just want to be the voice of wisdom and not just the voice of judgment.
All right, we're moving on to Cutter. Cool, Cutter. What you got? Guilty or not guilty?
I'm gonna roll with not guilty. I'm lying. That nigga's guilty. He's guilty. He's guilty. He's definitely he's been suspect. Well, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. He hasn't been suspect because from what I understand, he's come out as someone who struggled with homosexuality. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, he came
So
out and said
yeah,
that he was a recovering homosexual.
But the young people need to know I walked and I tried to find myself through other men.
I've never heard of that in my life. That's new. Recovering sexual. Last I checked, if you were gay, you were probably gay for life. I've heard of recovering alcoholics. I've heard of recovering drug addicts. I've heard of recovering sex addicts. Never have I heard of anybody recovering from their sexuality, who they are sexually. That's new to me. So
First
I'm
of
gonna say
all,
he's guilty.
that's like a crackhead selling crack. Yeah, it's like a crackhead selling crack.
Well, let me say this. There are people in the LGBT community that will say you were born this way. This is just how you are. And then there are other people that have lived a lifestyle like that. And later on in life, they started to speak about the fact that they felt, and I personally have talked to two people who have felt like they got delivered from that lifestyle, that they thought it was something they were born with. They thought that was just who they were. And then they had to realize that it was spirits that was working in them. So I think it just depends on what your belief is. Do you believe you're born as gay, or do you believe it's spiritual, or do you believe that it's just a habit of, that you have picked up along the way? Like, it just depends on what you believe gay is.
Personally, I believe it's a part of who you are sexually. Your sexuality is sort of like, I would say goes along with your core character. Though you may not practice the act of homosexuality, it's still a part of you. It's still a part of you. Um, you may, refrain from doing it for a better time, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like if a woman tells me that she was a lesbian before she dated me, I wouldn't be surprised if I found out if she cheated and it was with a woman, because to me that's a part of who you are sexually. I wouldn't be surprised if you, after we broke up, go back to women, because to me that's a part of who you are.
I think there are certain things that are a part of somebody's character. And then I think that as we mature and grow, sometimes what we used to like, we no longer have a desire for or an appetite for. So I do believe that those things can change. And I think that with wisdom and maturity, something that you once believed in, you may not believe in anymore. So I think it just depends on the individual person, what they believe gay is. Do you believe that you could be born that way? And do you believe it's something you could be delivered from? Because a lot of people go to AA classes and they used to be an alcoholic. And a lot of people say, oh, that's an addictive trait or a characteristic that you got that was passed down through your genes. And, once you have that in your genes, you're more susceptible to becoming addicted to things and things like that. But then, they feel like they got delivered from that, and they're helping other people to see where they can be healed from things like that. So I think that a lot of times when you talk about whether or not somebody can speak on something that they once was involved in, I think it takes somebody that can relate to that situation to speak on it. So I'm not saying that if you have stop practicing homosexuality, that you should never speak on it and you should never be accepted in the church organizations, because it just depends on, are you living what you're talking about that you believe in today? So like Gillum was saying, there are churches out there that accept gay members and they preach about gay stuff like that. But it's the hypocritical stuff that I think stands out with the church nowadays. One minute you're preaching about it and you're talking about it, but yet you're living a secret lifestyle. And I think that's where it becomes more offensive.
Well, I didn't give my opinion.
Guilty or not guilty?
So
Speak.
Is he guilty? I don't have enough evidence to, make a accurate assessment. Is he gay? I mean, yeah, the dude is a homosexual. That's number one. That's not a guilty thing. As far as in my book, everyone has their own moral standings and beliefs regarding homosexuality. But as far as if it's considered bad or good in a moral sense, no, I don't see that as a bad thing. That's his sexuality. The bad part comes in is when you are deceiving people, meaning that you have a false face on. That means that you're telling people you're something that you're not. That's where the deception comes in. You can't see. I personally, this is an I statement. I don't have a problem with anyone in their sexual preference, your fetishes, as long as it ain't, negatively impacting me and mine in some sort of personal way. Then, hey, have at it. You want to do that? That's what you do. You still cool with me. You still come on to the barbecue. We still gonna hang out. We gonna chop it up. But as far as that false face, that facade, and then you sitting up there talking about you're not gay, but then you doing gay shit on the side, and then telling people that you're straight. That's where the problem comes up, and I think that's what got him caught up in the first place.
Dudes don't think they're gay because they do gay shit. In their mind, that's just what they like. So they don't consider themselves gay. But as for a straight man, if you suck a dick, you gay.
Nigga, you gay.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Last time I checked, a certain form of sex with the same sex is a homosexual act, right? So if you are performing sexual acts with another man, you are considered what? By definition, homosexual.
Nigga, you gay.
There's no way getting around that. I understand this is a society today where we like to play with words to fit whatever convenient lifestyle we're living. And what they want to do today is play with the word gay. To me, it's always going to be the same thing. If you are committing sexual acts with the same sex, you are considered by definition homosexual.
Nigga, you gay.
You can't get around that shit. That's just it's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Well, I would agree with you on that, Cutter. But what about the person that's attracted to the same sex, but they ain't necessarily engaging in sexual activity? So I think that it's bigger than just engaging in sexual activity. I think it's a preference. I think that that's what determines which they identify as, because they may not practice sex. They may not be involved in sex, but that doesn't mean that they're not attracted to the same sex. So that's just my extra on that.
That goes into wordplay again. Like, people identify as dogs
Semantics.
too. Semantics.
You could be attracted to a 15-year-old because they may be developed like a grown ass woman or a grown ass man. That don't mean that you go sleep with them. When you go and commit the act, that is what makes you, by definition, homosexual.
Well, then if we're talking about Pastor Donnie McClurkin, if he's no longer practicing the homosexual act, can you still call him a homosexual?
Clearly he is.
Well, that doesn't say clearly. That means accusation-wise he is. But what if he's not actually doing it? What if he's not guilty of what he's being accused of? Are we still defining him as a homosexual?
So you mean so it will go into that once gay, always gay.
Yeah.
So
and that's why I was saying, if you believe that, then it's not about whether or not they're committing a sexual act with the same sex.
I don't believe you can go back from, this is just me as a man, I don't believe you can come back and from anything. I don't give a damn if a woman tells me she was with a woman once upon a time in her life. To me, you gonna always be a lesbian. Or you are prone to being a lesbian, or going with women, or being with women. The same thing as a man. I don't think you can ever come back from that. Once you lose your manhood, it's a wrap, bro.
Nigga, you gay.
You gay.
We need to dig in a little bit more.
Please do, because I got notes.
Oh, well, so we're gonna start back on the history of homosexuality in the Negro church. So,
oh boy,
woo!
There.
We start with the history of homosexuality in the Black church is a complex narrative of silence, secrecy, condemnation, and surprising coexistence, with traditional churches often preaching against it while simultaneously being home to many LGBTQ plus members, especially within gospel music and choir scenes, leading to internal conflict, open secrets, and a gradual push for more inclusive, affirming spaces as the broader Black community grapples with their with these issues. If we go back early eras, which we can all, relate to, don't ask, don't tell. That was initially. For decades, Black churches operated with an unspoken understanding, allowing gay members, often flaming queens, directing choirs. We all had homies in the choir that was, suspect, to participate while demanding they remain closeted to avoid scandal and uphold norms. So that's where we're going to start. We already got that history. What are y'all opinions on that part?
Well, we could go to your church, my church, anybody church in America, and you can find at least 5 homosexuals in the choir.
Suspect.
Oh, I'm sorry. Suspects. Yeah. Suspects. So it's been going on for ages and ages and ages, but it has been very taboo and very secretive until, I would say when the LGBT plus community start coming out, and then people start, the 2000s, they start coming out, and you knew they were gay, but they never said they was gay, but they had gay tendencies, suspect tendencies. So it's been going on a while. You like, man, that dude right there, he gay. And you're like, how you know? You see how he walk? Ain't no grown man walk like that.
Yeah.
Ain't no grown man dressed like that. That nigga sweet. Yeah, it's been on for a while. But I think that the acceptance is going on right now. So like I said earlier, my earlier statement was that this is a perfect time for people to come out if they're gay, because they got gay churches, they got gay ministers. I mean, the church is more conflicted now than ever about homosexuality. So, if that's what you do, that's what you do. Like he said earlier, that don't bother me. Do what you do. We still cool.
I'm gonna agree with Gillum. I mean, it's always been like, the elephant in the room, so to speak, to where nobody really talked about it. Even back in the day when we were growing up, that, okay, it's pretty clear that this person is suspect, as we're saying today. But nobody talked about it because they wanted that elephant to remain the elephant. Nobody wanted to address the fact that, hey, look, nobody wanted to call a parent and be like, look, your son is a little fruity. But he can sing, or he can play piano, he can play organ, or whatever. He might be able to direct the choir. And nobody wanted to shake that tree. Nobody wanted to do that. So it's always been around. It's just, like I said, nobody wanted to bring it to the forefront until today. But now today is accepted because the LGBTQ plus community made it acceptable. They got into positions of power in the church. They became pastors. They became church goers, choir directors, ministers of music. They were too powerful to let go. So at the end of the day, you're going to accept me for who I am as a gay person. That's what they're saying. Or we're going to take, what my talents are, and we're going to go across the street over here to Brother Wilson Church, because he accepts gay people. And, of course, if they know they're going to lose the following, they going to go exactly what whatever the program is. It's about money. It's about money. Church is a business at the end of the day. So, of course, they stay around.
Well, to touch on what you said, I feel like from what you said in regards to the history of it in the Black church, I think it goes back a little bit further than that in knowledge. It goes back to slavery, when the men in slavery, the Black men in slavery, were being taken advantage of by the masters. They was being raped in front of their children and wives as a form of control and fear, implementing fear in the Black community. And it's not something that was ever proud of to just come out and say, I was taken advantage of. A lot of men nowadays, if they've ever been taken advantage of in their youth, I don't care whether it be a male or a female, they don't want to label it as they lost their manhood or that they were raped, or, I don't know if we could say that word, but that they were.
You say it on here.
right? That they were taken advantage of sexually, that they were sexually assaulted. If a young boy is taken advantage of by a woman, it's like his introduction into manhood. You know, nobody's going to say, oh, the babysitter sexually assaulted me. They're going to be like, oh man, I hit an older woman. It's looked at differently. And I think it's protected in the mindset of a man that doesn't want to look like he lost his say-so or control. Now, I think that comes in whether it's a male or a female, being that in slavery, the men and the boys was being taken advantage of and sexually assaulted by the master and the master's wife. And I think the mindset behind that just continued through generations. And so now when we are in the day and age that we're in now, of course, we were taught it ain't acceptable to lay down with a man. How many of us grew up hearing the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and things like that? So it's embarrassing and it's shameful. And if you're a leader in the church and you got young boys growing up in the church and you seeing them act more feminine than masculine, then it's in the shame on your family. You know, and so I think that it's been taught to be covered up, just like when young girls got pregnant and they was shipped off to have a baby somewhere else because they didn't want to shame the family because it went against what their beliefs were. And they didn't want their family to have that shame. And it is becoming more transparent because now you can be looked at as, hateful acts if you speak against the LGBT community. But I was telling my daughter recently that just like the LGBT community has a right to speak their opinions on what they believe, people that disagree with them have the same right without it being a hate act or a hate speech. Opinions are just that, opinion.
This is, of course, going to be a controversial take on this part, but regarding Donnie McClurkin, he felt the need, based off of course, our nurturing more than naturing. Our tradition in the Black culture, especially in church, is homosexuality is a sin. That's been the foundation for it, since I can even remember. So it's
an abomination.
Oh yeah, gotta add that. Abomination, right? So this wasn't just some sort of willy-nilly, oh man, I messed up and slept with such and such, or had premarital sex, or cursed, ate the wrong type of food on the wrong type of day. That's not what this is. This was looked at, you can be casted out, exiled, exodus, from the church. And then that traveled, and once that got around, you couldn't go anywhere. So it forced homosexuals in the Black church to have to stay underground no matter what. So they accepted it. But this is, like I said, the negative part about this is if we stay in this framework, right? The biblical framework, and we analyze the structure, the fundamental basis of this is the deity in that particular religion. So if you're saying that you were called to minister and be leader within a church, and you're an overseer of a whole bunch of parishioners, and you're saying that you were born this way, and the source of your birth, your blood, right, your soul, your spirit, they made you gay, right? So who's to blame? Is it the individual that shot the gun, or the one that manufactured it? And that's what this leans towards. It goes into the whole fundamental premise that the deity itself, if you're accusing the almighty deity as creating an imperfection in his creation, then you're saying that it's his fault that he made you that way. And then,
well, excuse me, sir. Go ahead. And I know that the deity is never blamed, because the deity, is flawless.
Yeah.
So the deity has gave you self-will. Mm-hmm. So now you are the problem because you made the decision to be that way. So the deity never takes blame. So you know better than that, boy.
Circle, as you already just stated so eloquently, that it goes back to the individual as the center, the problem, the something in you that you were not necessarily born with, was something that you had the free will and chose to do. So it goes back to you. And this goes back to, of course, not just Donnie McClurkin, but any homosexual that is in the church, especially in leadership position. They have to, in order to take the Bible literally, you could always, rearrange it and call it reinterpretation. And we're just saying, figuratively speaking. But if you go with the actual verbatim, the meaning of those words in that book, it explicitly condemns homosexuality, at least in the Old Testament. Jesus himself is more neutral on the matter, don't really say, either way. He kind of, so with that gap in saying, hey, we don't live by the Old Testament, we live by the New Testament. It allows you to live under this new covering, this new covenant, and you can avoid having to explicitly be condemned in the church. So that's where most of the LGBTQ plus members stay in when they talk about staying within the church and also living their lifestyle out in the open.
Danelle said something that was very key about what you're talking about. She said that she has talked to people that they said they had been delivered from homosexuality because it was a spirit. So that goes back to that Old Testament about being you. That goes back to the New Testament about you being a sinner. So it ain't never the deity fault because it's spirits around that's jumping on you. That's what that's saying.
But let me also say this and just responding to what you said, Ephraim, when we're talking about the church and we're talking about homosexuality in the church and, trying to put it off on were you born this way or whatever, I think that we also have to mention that it's like Gillum said, we have a free will of choice. But like we said earlier, you are responsible for being a reflection of what you actually say you believe in. And as a leader of a congregation or a group of people, you can't preach one thing and say, believe in this Bible, believe in the word of this Bible, and then say, but the interpretation is off when it comes to this scripture right here. Well, then why are you teaching out of a Bible that we can't actually read and follow? So that's where I say the contradictions don't really. When people say the Old Testament versus the New Testament contradicts each other, that's because you're not getting an understanding. Because the way it's supposed to be interpreted, which is the way people teach in the church as leaders, is the Old Testament teaches the law, the New Testament fulfills the law. And if you listen to what Jesus said in the New Testament, he said, what law have I broken when they were persecuting him? Because he was referring to the Old Testament. So it doesn't contradict itself. It's a fulfillment of itself. And basically he's saying, I came down to be an example of the Old Testament, and the characteristics that we taught was the characteristics of God in the Old Testament and the law. So you're not necessarily able to make an excuse for doing something different in the New Testament than what was spoken in the Old Testament and say it's all an interpretation and it's separate, because that's not what the book teaches. And if you're not going to believe the book as written, and of course get some deeper understanding and do your studying, but don't teach out of a book that you're going to tell me is full of contradictions.
It could be argued, and it probably has, that because Jesus himself never married or had kids and never spoke out openly against homosexuality.
No, don't you do that.
That he was gay. That he was gay.
Too. That could be
that Jesus was gay.
But that's neither here nor there. That's just the way my twisted brain thinks.
I thought the same thing. When you said it, I said Jesus was gay.
Well, there is certain people that are set apart for certain things. Like the woman that went and she offered her son back to God because she had prayed and couldn't conceive. And then when she's conceived, she says, I'm going to offer him back to the temple. There were certain nations and tribes that had certain, like, you're going to be the priesthood. You're going to be the ones that are over this or over that. I don't think that everybody their purpose is not the same. There are some people that say, if you can't abstain from sex, okay, it's better to marry than to burn. But if you can, then you can go ahead and submit yourself fully to the service of God without having an also responsibility of putting your family first as a leader. So there's some people out there that might commit themselves to a covenant with God that they say, I'm not going to marry, I'm not going to be sexually active, I'm just going to do the work of the Lord. And this is what I feel I was called to do. And we have nuns and priests that do that. Of course, we have nuns and priests that live a double life and say they doing that and not doing that. But there are people that do live what they preach about and what they say they committed to.
And I'm glad you said that. Let me touch on that before we move on. Where do we think the term down low came from? It came from people who did not want people to know whether they were in powerful positions, whether they were just average everyday workers that were married, whether they were a preacher or a choir director who lived these what we call today down low lifestyles. Meaning in public, you present something that is politically correct, socially correct, and culturally correct. But behind closed doors, you live in a whole different lifestyle. So, of course, it became relevant in the modern day because now everybody is living so say open, but you have more people who are old school who prefer to stay down low. And it's for various reasons. We're going to talk about that too. So let's continue. E, you got it.
Figures like gospel legends James Cleveland, Edwin Hawkins, and Walter Hawkins were openly gay or rumored to be, showing LGBTQ plus presence within a high-profile church circle, despite the lack of affirmation. With that being said, musicians, choir directors, because they were so intricate in the entertainment part of the church scene, they got passes. Do you think that that's fair? Do you think that's kind of kicking us in the butt now with this?
Let me say
That's business.
Let me say it, and I was just getting ready to bring that back up because you said earlier that the church is a business. I heard a T.I. on a podcast recently, and he was saying the church is a business. Don't they count their money at the end of every service? So they have to go down as a business. They have to have an EIN number. They have to, most churches have their 501, 401(c)(3)s and all this and that. And yes, it's the business. And they try to present it like, we got to pay the bills to keep the lights on, get the mortgage paid, to be able to offer resources to the community and stuff like that. So it's a business, whether it's nonprofit, profit, whatever. It is a business. When we talk about fairness, I think that it comes back to being hypocritical because the Bible that they teach out of says he'd rather you be cold or hot. But if you lukewarm, he'll spew you out of his mouth. So you can't be sitting up here saying, well, I want to please the world and I want to please God too, because you don't stand for nothing. If you're going to teach something, stand for it. Regardless of whether it's a business, regardless of whether it's fair, regardless of what your image is going to look like, why are you preaching about something that you're not going to live by and you're just going to have a double hypocritical life?
The same way a person can stand on the corner and sell dope and then still go to church in the morning. Frank Lucas was one of the most one of the major heroin dealers in the United States in the 70s. But he still managed to go to church with his mama every Sunday. I know other dope boys who still try to practice a social standard, but in the dark, they do wrong.
But that's what we heard about. I just went to church today, and it was so funny because I had done some research on our topic today. And the topic for today was Christian-ish. Like we talk about Blackish, the show Blackish, and it's so popular. Christian-ish versus Christian-like. And I only say Christian. I only say Christian because we're talking about the Black church, and most Black denominations are founded in that Christianity belief. Nevertheless, I feel like a lot of people want to have an image of godliness, but they don't want to live by the standards that are taught in the book that they want to say they govern their life by.
Well, most men, especially if they're in a leadership position, you got to deal with the fact that your masculinity, your reputation, your leadership role, or just being seen as straight in public could mean you losing our respect from your peers and the people who follow you. You know what I mean? So, of course, they down low.
But living a double life, you losing the respect of God, which is more important.
Allegedly.
And I'm glad you said that. Who do people care about more? On paper, it's God.
In real life, it's people's opinion.
Exactly. If they cared about God's opinion, they wouldn't even be practicing that shit in the first goddamn place.
But that's my point. A lot of people want the image of something, but they don't want to do what it takes to actually be that. And it could go from homosexuality. It could go from being a leader in your household. It could go from being a good father. A lot of people want to put a lot of stuff out there that they don't really want to do the work to be.
Everybody's a politician. That's what this comes down to. People in church, they politicians because they presenting something that they're really not, or they really don't want to be, or they just trying to be so they can get paid. Because at the end of the day, nobody really knows if the church structure is made up in Disneyland or it's real. And most people won't say it out loud. Most people won't agree. They're going to disagree with what I say. I know that God is real. I believe. I know. You don't really know. You think you know, but you don't really know. So the facade.
Go ahead.
Huh? What you say?
I said they believe when it's convenient to believe.
Right.
Yes, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say it's convenient. So the facade is that I'm gonna do this as long as I can do this, and whatever benefits me and I get benefit from it, I'm gonna keep on doing it until someone finds out what I really do. And then when it comes out, I'm gonna say, man, I had this spirit in me. Lord Jesus, forgive me. The spirit took over me and I just need to be prayed for. We didn't see many preachers who've done things that were wrong. And then they come back and say, oh, Lord, forgive me, Jesus. I really apologize. We didn't see it. And then people forgive them. And they start over again. Go ahead.
Because I'm glad you said this. When we can include the people who are watching this, including ourselves, who was raised Christian, when did we realize that nothing happened after we did wrong? Well, at what age did you realize that you come to this grip of reality that I did wrong, whether you had sex for the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, 500th time, and you pray for forgiveness, whether you stole and you pray for forgiveness, whether you beat somebody up or you did something wrong or sinned in general. Did you realize after you did that and you prayed for forgiveness, nothing fucking happened? Nothing fucking happened.
Let me say this. I remember because I was raised in a strict holiness church, Pentecostal apostolics, holy rollers. But so I remember when I was little and I was growing up, and my grandparents used to always talk about burning in hellfire, and you never know when God is going to come back, and you might be caught in the middle of your sin, and God come back, and you miss being caught up and all this and that. And I remember I used to be afraid to lie. I would not tell a lie because I thought God could come back in the middle of me telling a lie, and I was going to get a whooping one day by my grandma, and everybody was scared of grandma's whoopings. And I lied in the moment to get out of that whooping. And of course, I got away with that. I did feel a guilty conscience, but let me say that taught me that, okay, it might not be possible that what I've been afraid of is going to be my punishment immediately. But as a mature person that holds myself accountable to what I put out there comes back to me, I have realized that even though you don't see the result right away or you don't see the consequences right away, what you put out there does come back to you in one way, shape, form, or fashion eventually. And that's the maturity that I hold myself to. I do believe you reap what you sow.
I'm not saying you don't reap what you sow. I'm talking about immediately after something you've done. And you don't, here's the thing about that. Whatever you're reaping, you don't know what the fuck that's for. Let's be honest. Like you did a whole bunch of shit that was bad in your life. So if something bad happens to you in the place of that, where do you put it? You don't know where to put it. If our sins were a puzzle, and you had one side that was bad and one side that was good, you wouldn't know where the fuck to put these pieces if one side had to represent bad and the other side had to represent good, because the other pieces came back later. So you would have to figure out what your actual karma is and what the fuck it's for. And at the end of the day, it makes no fucking sense. Because you can receive karma, but what am I receiving karma for? What did I do?
My favorite part of the Bible.
My favorite piece of karma. Go ahead.
My favorite part of Christianity is this: that you can do all the bad shit you want, and I got forgiveness on credit. I could go in and ask for forgiveness, and all my bad shit has been wiped away. That's my favorite part of Christianity. I could say I could beat my wife. Allegedly, I could kill somebody. I could steal a bunch of stuff because that's in the Ten Commandments. You know, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. But they never said I cannot be forgiven for those things. So that's my favorite part. So homosexuality, all I'm gonna do is ask for forgiveness if I'm gay, like Donnie McClurkin. I'm gonna say, Lord, forgive me. I slipped and fell. I fell down, but now I'm going to get up. Hallelujah. Come on. Preach on.
Like the quote that's on the screen, it is often easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. My point to that is simply this. A lot of people ask for forgiveness and they're really not repentant. Now, there is a difference from asking for forgiveness and repentance, because repentance comes with a change of heart, a change of behavior, being willing to accept the consequences for what you did. And especially if you ask somebody that you have offended or hurt or taken advantage of or abused, you can ask them for forgiveness, but that doesn't mean that you are relinquished from the consequences. They might end your friendship. They might say, okay, it's cool, but I'm never going to lend money to you again, or I don't have trust in you anymore. The consequences still come. And just because you ask for forgiveness doesn't mean that you have a repentant heart. If you keep doing the same thing over and over, then you didn't ask for forgiveness. You was just asking to be released from the shame. If you're not willing to accept the consequences for what you did, you don't really have a repentant heart. So a lot of people that ask for forgiveness doesn't mean that they've really repented. And that's where the forgiveness doesn't come in. It's an exchange. You have to change your behavior. You have to go the opposite way. You have to really be sorry enough to not just try to shove it under the rug, but accept the consequences for what you did.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry at that time. At that time, I am sorry.
But being sorry doesn't mean that you've repented.
At that time, I am repentant. At that time, I am repentant.
Repentance means a change in your behavior, and that's shown over time.
And I tried to repent. I tried to change.
That's why I say
it's just this spirit inside of me. It just keeps coming back. I feel, Lord have mercy. I want God to forgive me, because that's what they do. This is how it's played. I mean, you saying with sincere heart at that point in time that you have been caught. So when you caught in something that you do, you are repenting for what you caught for. And you are sorry, and the consequences will come for you, because the consequences are whatever the world say it is. But however, the world can't judge me. Only God can. Hallelujah. Tupac said that.
A person is doing what they're doing 9 times, especially when it's sexually motivated. They ain't forgive. They ask for forgiveness when they having sex, whether it's gay or with somebody's wife, or when they supposed to be celibate or practicing abstinence or any kind of form of. They not asking for forgiveness during the act. You know when the forgiveness comes is needed after they nut. Right after that nut. Ain't that convenient like a motherfucker?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that convenient? Right after you nut. Oh my God, Lord forgive me. What's your dick in your hand? You like, oh man, I fucked up.
Oh my God. And boom, it's too late.
Early Black periodicals in the post-war era documented both gossip about queer individuals and stories of those successfully integrating into religious communities, highlighting covert forms of sexual citizenship. So they got covert forms of sexual citizenship. I mean, is that deception? I mean, because that's what Cut had mentioned earlier, this deceptive move of what we call down low. Is it okay? Would you rather them come out? And as you had mentioned, Danelle, and then Gillum, you said the same thing. It was kind of a consensus that living this double lifestyle is considered basically two-faced. You're wearing a mask, you're trying to trick people, and then you're living a whole nother lifestyle underneath. And the reason being, though, because this is the elephant in the room, what's the alternative? Because in the end, if you want to be in the Black church, the consensus of the Black church is still far, far by popular opinion, is that homosexuality is wrong. It's a sin. So you got this small percentage of population that's trying to, advocate for this to change. that's not going to change anytime soon. I think we can all agree on that. The norm, the consensus will still be that based on biblical principles in Christianity, you're not going to be able to live a double lifestyle in public. So it's going to continue to keep people underground living these double lifestyles. Your opinions?
It's not an option for them. They have to stay underground because of the double lifestyle that they live. They will be persecuted. And that's what they do in black churches. They're going to persecute them so that you're not going to be welcome. You're not going to feel welcome to come in and praise and worship like you should worship freely, because they're going to think that you're dirty and nasty and everything else.
From the black church's perspective, it's always going to be down low because, we just discussed the whole segment of why it's a sin. It's always going to be considered ungodly. Societal, it's always going to be down low because you still got people outside of church who are in positions that require them to be quote unquote manly or masculine, or presented that way. And we already know that if you come out as gay, your masculinity is out the window. So you're going to have senators that are down low. You're going to have mayors. You're going to have police sheriffs. You're going to have all these people who are in powerful positions. You're going to have Jewish pastors who are also gay, Catholic pastors who are also gay. You're going to have all these people who are going to remain down low because they're not going to be accepted. Majority wise in society, they're not going to be accepted, as though they're going to feel that way. And it's going to be for a long time until this generation or the next generation changes that view of sexuality. And they're trying to do it, but I don't think it's going to work.
Like you said, masculinity versus femininity. A lot of people want to say, it's not manly for a man to act feminine or, to have homosexuality tendencies. So that goes beyond just being attracted to another man or the same sex. That also addresses the feminine personality that a man may carry that makes him not be looked at as a masculine, strong man. And in a lot of ways, this generation is displaying more men that's acting their masculine role in a lot of societal situations. And does that mean that they're not masculine, they're not manly? Does that mean that they're homosexuals? What about these emotional ones that's abusing women and doing all this and that? Or does that define what a man looks like? Whether or not they're feminine or masculine, and whether or not they qualify to be considered and have the respect of a manly man. And then also when you talked about whether or not it should always be down low, let me say this. There's a difference between somebody coming to God and being transparent and saying, accept me for who I am, versus a leader in the congregation or the pulpit teaching against the lifestyle and secretly living that lifestyle. I think it's a lot more accepted when people come with humility and transparency and they say, this is who I am, accept me for who I am, versus somebody that is trying to deceive because they want the image for respect, but they don't want to do what's required for respect. Because I've seen people come to the church and they get on their knees and they down there praying and the ushers have to throw a blanket over them because they thong is showing in the back while they on their knees crying out to God. And when you say, come to me as I am and I'll heal you and I'll deliver you, you can't necessarily say get cleaned up before you come in. But I think it's the deception. I think it is the misleading. I think it is the lukewarmness. And I think it's the leaders not making a separation of the fact that you are going to be held to a stricter standard. You can't preach against something that you're secretly doing. And I think that's where it becomes more of an offense versus somebody just in a congregation or somebody that's coming out saying I'm gay.
Well, let me correct you. I never said it should be down low. I said it will always be down low.
No, I don't. If I said should be, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah. No, it's just from my opinion, it will, for the majority, especially of our generation, is always going to be down low because we're living in that time to where we are still accepting the LGBTQ plus community as a whole. Period. We're still accepting that. So accepting like down low men or down low women is going to be a like it's going to come to a what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be a long while. Yeah, it's going to be a long while before that's accepted. This is why, like I say, this is why most down low men will remain down low because they know they won't be accepted. Even though, or I would agree with OG. This is prime time for you to come out to say, like, look, you might be embraced more for doing that. You know, you got dudes who done got TV deals and all kinds of stuff for coming out. You know what I mean? Because the LGBTQ plus community has power in Hollywood, especially, which ain't
But I
surprising.
think even in the Black church, it's more it's easier to accept somebody being transparent than somebody telling a lie. And
Not really. Not really. Because you still, here's the thing about Black church. Black church is fraudulent. As far as the people, the pastors and all that stuff, they're supposed to accept you. The congregation ain't. They gon' save face and be like, oh, that's so good he came out. I knew that nigga was gay. That's so good he came out. Girl, I don't want my nephew going around him because he gay now and all that stuff. And I knew he was gay, and now he can't be the minister of young boys. He can't mentor young boys and all that stuff. I wouldn't want my dude. I wouldn't want my child, my young growing boy, around a dude that then came out, especially in the goddamn church. You know what I mean? Some of them niggas suspect any goddamn way. You know what I mean? So it's always going to be backlash of you coming out, especially in the Black church.
But the young people need to know I walked and I tried to find myself through other men. What am I doing? I'm taking the mask off. I'm taking the mask off. I'm taking the mask off.
It's coming on 100.
People, I'm coming clean. You want real? I'm real right now. You want real? I'm clean. I'm real. I'm transparent right now. You have no idea how many times I gave myself away trying to find myself. Just trying to feel loved because my daddy didn't cover me. Just trying to feel loved because I didn't have a man to show me what love was. And the only man that loved me lusted me.
I don't think that you can alter your mental states by simply speaking them. You can't change your attitude, your attraction, just because you say it. It sounds good, but we all know just because you say it, you saying it after the fact that it already happened. So we're getting compelled by our emotions and our states of mind. And then we use language to narrate what we've already been forced to recognize through our mental state. The brain does it whether you want it to or not. So these urges, just many of them, we got many emotional states. We got many states of mind. So that's just one of many. Your attraction. He's attracted, like many other people, to the same sex. Why does he feel like that? He don't know. He was born like that. Like he said, well, his mind, that's what as we say, nurture nature. He wouldn't nurture necessarily that. It's easy to try to lump everyone into that box and say, hey, the reason why you like the same sex or you like this particular fetish is because you was born in that atmosphere in your community. You was molested or that's all you. We still trying to put it as self again, because the whole point is if you were to remove that finger pointing from self and try to look from outside of self to figure out what is the influence and impact that's causing this, it's going to lead you to point the finger at the deity. That's the problem. You can't point it at the deity that's not allowed in the framework. It's
because it's perfect.
You can't contaminate the deity with the shit that you do that don't fit with the narrative about the deity. That's the problem.
How you gonna serve a perfect God and you said he made a flaw in you?
Exactly. So,
yes.
And again, this is all philosophy of religion. This is just basic theology. We're not telling you anything.
We're not saying whether it's right or wrong. We just saying that you can't present it as being a perfect deity, but then say you were born in a way that the Bible that you follow teaches is an abomination.
You can't. So, and it again, just basic philosophy on the subject matter. And this goes into why the arguments, debates, and the condemnation has been taking place for centuries on this particular subject within the church. It ain't just the black church. I started the segment at that point because, our race relatives is the main point in this subject matter at this time, even though we can go back further and they've been dealing with homosexuality for a long time with humanity and society, trying to determine, hey, is this nurture or is this nature? Why do you have these urges and I don't? Why do you want a dick and I don't?
Why do you want to practice bestiality and sleep with animals and other people don't?
Why do you want to touch on kids that's been, a certain age, and then I don't? Something's wrong with you. And then they're like, well, I can't control it. I don't know where it came from. No. You can't say that. You got to say it is because of something in your society, the cultural aspect of society that has harmed you and made you that way. It cannot be by any means that you were born that way. That's the argument.
I ask the question all the time is, why do people, when you work hard at a craft, whatever the craft is, if you in the gym shooting jump shots, you working on your game, you try to be the greatest athlete you come, and you become drafted, and you say, I want to thank God for giving me all these blessings. But when you do something wrong, and now God is not even in the picture no more. So how does that work? If He giving me the good stuff, why He can't give me the bad stuff too?
Here's
they like to blame the devil for all the bad stuff and give credit to God for all the good stuff.
I was just about to say that. Yes.
This is the introduction to what I wanted to address. The introduction to homosexuality, or the possibilities of the introduction to an alternate sexuality. An alternate sexuality is usually introduced by somebody that is older than you. It's not a curiosity. I don't think anybody is born with that. You know what I mean? I'm not a counselor or anything like that. Just based on my studies, my personal studies. Most people who are homosexuality were either introduced to it by someone in their family or outside of their families, or somebody older who basically, this is your introduction to sexuality. Think about it. If you are not introduced to sexuality by the opposite sex, meaning that, the typical way, you got a crush on somebody, y'all like each other, y'all go there. Whether you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, it don't matter. Y'all go there. This is your introduction to sexuality. Some people's introduction is through porn. That was my introduction.
Hide and go get it.
Hide and go get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could only imagine, and this is why I say I put myself in other people's shoes, being introduced to sexuality is such a strong element of humanity, or your
human nature.
Human nature. I'm saying the wrong words because I'm not educated in that realm. You know what I mean? So, and I can admit that, but I do understand it. Biologically, like, if I'm being introduced to sexuality by the same sex, it's probably gonna fuck with me, fuck with my mental. As growing up, all I know is I done got introduced to sexuality by somebody of my same sex. I don't think that's gonna make anybody else, any other human, that's not gonna make you normal. It's gonna confuse you, because as a man, I'm supposed to like women. But here I am, 14, 13 years old, getting penetrated by another man, or being, forced to perform sexual acts by other men. And by the time I get to of an age where normal boys are supposed to be interacting with young girls, I'm fucked up because I don't know what the fuck that is. And I'm being blunt because we being blunt. Fuck it. It is what it is. So I can't put myself in their shoes because I've never experienced it, but I can only have compassion for them, because I can only imagine what it's like to be introduced to sexuality that way. Same with females. Being forced to interact with a man, a grown ass man, of course I'm gonna have a disdain for grown men. So it's no coincidence that most of these girls are lesbian, especially if they been molested early in their lives. You know what I mean? Because this was their introduction mentally. This is your introduction to sex.
What it does is it starts to tell you what your appetite should look like. Even if you are growing up seeing a toxic, abusive relationship and then you end up getting in one as you're older, what has become the norm becomes what you have an appetite for. It feels comfortable, what you're used to.
Damn,
Or like you said, it could detour you. Like if you've been, if you've experienced trauma in a certain area where it should have been the norm for you to have an attraction for the opposite sex, but if the opposite sex has caused you trauma in that way, it can make you fearful of that and make you turn to affection and love in other areas. So it could be either way. But also, there's a lot of homes where kids are growing up nowadays without the example of masculinity or a father. And they're in the kitchen. Young boys is in the kitchen with their moms. They're playing with their sisters. Next thing you know, that's what they think beauty is.
You said something that I thought about. We had mentioned nature and nurturing, and then that element of our upbringing, it tends to blend and blur, because what you just described, those situations where you are nurtured, meaning groomed in certain conditions that may not be positively beneficial to you as a maturing person, it ends up becoming overwhelming. And then it ends up seeming as if it's a natural thing, because the internal coherence that takes place from it happening becomes a feeling of external confirmation of what you think life is for you. So it starts looking like it's nature, but in actuality, it was nurture. But the nurture has been so, I guess, maximized. It's been amplified so much in your life that you don't even realize the difference between the two anymore. So that's what I thought about with that situation. So you got a lot of people that end up, telling you, hey, I was born like this. I was born like this.
The lines are blurred. The lines are blurred.
Would you even be able to tell? It's blurred. You can't even tell which one was what, which one influenced what.
I don't hate nobody. You understand? And as a therapist, I do therapy with homosexual males all the time. And for a lot of them, one of the precipitating issues that led to the homosexuality was childhood molestation by an adult when they were still a child. So I have an empathy for that. So I'm not going to go around ridiculing somebody because they gay or lesbian or bisexual, because I know there's issues in their childhood that help bring that about. But at the same time, I reserve the right to say, I don't think this is in the best interest of my community. I don't hate you, but I'm not going to support it because I don't see the long-term benefit of practicing this type of behavior.
Do you think people can be born gay?
No, I don't. And there's no conclusive evidence to that point.
Wow, a lot of gay people say they were born that way. They said that, you're saying
a lot of murderers say they were born murderers. A lot of pedophiles say they were born pedophiles. So if we're going to say there's a gay gene, we're going to have to open up the conversation and say that there's a pedophile gene, which means if I molest children, I shouldn't go to jail because after all, it was in my DNA.
What did I say
Be careful
yesterday?
about opening up one door. You got to open up all them doors.
What did I say yesterday? I said, if you keep acting like that, in about 15 years, people going to be like, oh, pedophilia is just something.
Well, no, hold on. Being a pedophile is illegal. Being a homosexual is not illegal.
Well, true, but guess what? When the DSM-5 came out last year, that's the Bible of diagnoses, they say they accidentally put pedophilia in as a sexual orientation. Having sex with kids accidentally was not listed in the DSM as an illness. They had to quickly fix to change that. And I think they did that on purpose because there's an organization called the North American Association for Man and Boy Love. They're trying to normalize and legalize pedophilia.
Oh, no, we got to blow them up.
It's on the internet. North American Association.
That sounds crazy.
Oh, my goodness. In fact, it's already been predicted that when the next DSM comes out, pedophilia will be normal behavior.
We need to drop a
Remember,
bomb.
homosexuality was once mental illness up until 74. They changed it in 74. Some people thought homosexuality would never be considered normal in 74.
But it was never illegal.
It was never illegal. But here's the thing. Once you say something is normal, it's easy to make it legal.
That's the part I really wanted to hit because I was about to call this nigga TD Jakes. Donnie McClurkin.
Oh, come on.
He was slurping up that dirt. Donnie McClurkin, he addressed that, having no father figure at all to teach him how to be a man or correct him. And here's the thing about fatherhood. Y'all both know this. I don't, but I can understand that if I didn't have uncles, technically, because me and E was raised in a house full of women, we were supposed to be gay as a motherfucker.
Me too.
But because we had mentors, male mentors, uncles, cousins, people around us that were able to instill that manhood piece in us. I'm thanking whoever the Most High is, because we got a pass. You know what I'm saying? Even our upbringing around us, we had our friends had fathers that played ball with us. The little Jews we could take from them, we took from them. Because when we had to go home, it was a household full of women. So we couldn't wait to go outside and play with the boys, and dads, throwing us the football and playing basketball with us and doing all that stuff. We the same advice they're giving their sons, we secretly taking that advice. Oh, that's how you do this. Oh, this is how you do this, this and that. And then we had the boys' rights and passions at Willer Avenue that gave us a lot of Jews and a lot of young adult males, mentors who took us under their wings and kind of, gave us those manhood, those manhood Jews that we really, really needed. You know what I mean? So a lot of boys don't have that. And then you have those rebellious mothers that don't want their sons to learn no manhood qualities at all because they hate men. So the best thing for them is for their son to act like them. That's why they don't check it.
You know what, Color, you said something that's very important. I grew up the same way, and my Uncle James is my father. He definitely is my father. And I always wanted to be like him when I grew up, not like my mama. I learned some great things from Clara May. I learned how to cook. I learned how to do a lot of things. But the man part of me came from my uncle. Definitely. He corrected a lot of things that I could have went down the wrong path. He was like, men don't act like that, young man. That's not what we do. So I think that's missing in our African-American community and a lot of communities. And as I became a father, I saw a lot of it with my son's friends. They always wanted to hang around us because, we did man shit, and a lot of those friends are his friends to the day, and they come around, they call me Pops. Yo, what's up, Pops? How you doing? And they have grown up to be great young men. I said I had a hand in it. I don't know if I did or not, but I know a lot of them had single mothers as that's who they was with, but they hung out at my house. My house was like a goddamn sleepover all the time. He could tell you he was there. I mean, we had young boys at our house all the time hanging out with my sons. And, we just influence them in that way. And I think that's what's missing. And like you said, it's a lot of that missing in the community because some women hate they baby daddy. So they hate men altogether. So they never check that behavior and they just let them do what they do. So, and it's a learned behavior. It's definitely a learned behavior. I don't think anyone is born gay. I think it's a learned behavior that you pick up along the way that's never been checked.
Well, I definitely think one major contribution is the lack of a male figure to teach the boys how a man should look in a home. And sometimes they're in the home and they're not doing a good job. And sometimes they're absent from the home, which is exactly why I wrote the book titled The House Without Doors. That's a metaphor for saying without that protection, without that leadership, without that guidance, there's consequences that's going to follow and there's going to be seen in the children and in the household.
Did the nail just drop the book title on us? Did she just drop the book title on us?
Yes, I did. Yes,
shameless plug. Shameless plug.
I still ain't got my copy.
If you don't have your copy, grab it down.
So to bring this full circle, guys,
That's why you ain't got your shirt, punk.
Oh. So to bring this full circle, it seems that as we use the Donnie McClurkin as our catalyst, our basis to draw inferences from on this topic, it ain't just Donnie. He's just in a long line of incidents that has taken place, and the most recent, of course, for 2026. But as far as what it means, it doesn't seem to be a straight line to gayness. It don't seem to be like this one thing. Hey,
it's
you
a
went through
zigzaggy
this.
road.
That motherfucker is rooted with all these different intricacies.
It's zigzaggy.
So
It's zigzaggy.
for anyone to say that, hey, the reason why this particular person is this particular way, I think that's arrogant as fuck. And I think anyone that says that, you should definitely be leery of the knowledge that they proclaim to be dropping. I think that's the point. You guys have any closing remarks on this?
I agree with that.
I agree. It's a zigzaggy road to any, alternative sexual lifestyle. And I call it a lifestyle because that's, like I said at the beginning, it's a part of who you are sexually, and I tie your sexuality in and out with your character. And I don't care what Danielle Wright said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tie it in together with who you are as a person. Now, granted, it doesn't affect how you treat me because I'm not gay, so I don't want you. But I understand who you are as a person. You do have something to hide, and that's what kind of makes me not trust you like fully, because you have something to hide, which you shouldn't have to hide at all, because that's a part of who you are as a person. So, to anybody out there, like Pimp C say, if you're gay, man, come out the closet, man.
Come out the closet.
And if you're a leader, live what you're teaching about.
Exactly. That's how I'm gonna land on that.
Yeah.
If you're gay, if you're gay, still leave what you're talking about. That's what that's what
Right.
it is.
Like just stop being undercover. Stop being hypocritical. Stop being lukewarm. If you gonna live it, be man enough or woman enough to say this is me, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Hey,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I ain't gonna be in your movies no way, nigga.
He say, and that's, I think that's what we've learned. That's the whole point in this whole segment. Be authentic. Be your most authentic self. Because it's hard living a fucking lie. Nobody, that's too much stress on your life. It's hard to try to put up this facade, put on this mask to try to represent different people to different people all the goddamn time. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to be in a goddamn therapy office, and then you'll find yourself in a situation, for example, with like Donnie and many others, where people will take advantage of your secret if you don't do what they say. You got an unfair relationship because you got something that they know about, and they know if you start acting up a certain way, I'm gonna throw that shit out in the public and I'm gonna put you on blast, and that keeps on happening. But if you just be your fucking authentic self,
Nigga, you gay.
be yourself, Nick. You are gay. Be proud
And that don't mean you gotta go telling your business to everybody, but just don't be hypocritical about it.
Yeah.
Don't be in leadership talking about it and doing it. If you want to go to the church, don't act like you're against the LGBT community and then you trying to sleep with men at nighttime. Like, just be your authentic self and don't be on the DL, because there's too much going around, especially in our community, where it's like you're exposing yourself to people and you're exposing them to things that they have no idea they're being exposed to because you can't be transparent. The bottom line is, if you can't be yourself, you don't love yourself. You don't accept yourself. So how somebody else going to accept you for who you are and you too scared to show them?
Conquer Gravity TV,
That's
2026.
Hit the like and subscribe button. If y'all want more of this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Striving to know more and do more with what we know. Concrete Reality TV. Peace.
As you can see, I was raised in the streets. I ain't got a whole lot of partners with me. 'Cause I know them boys.
Concrete Reality.